So we've been working in class on learning basic portrait structure, and so I want to use our homework to help reinforce that. And there are some ideas that I want for you guys to pay attention to as we do this portrait. Here's one that I think is really cool. So if you look here, you'll notice, you see this shape? This is a shape that I'm gonna ask you guys to take into consideration as you draw your portraits. And I think that if you look at it, I like to say it's a kind of butterfly shape, okay? And I think that it does a nice job of kind of describing how the eyes work. Another nice shape is this one right here. Remember how in class we worked to locate that exact shape? Okay. And then here, when we describe the nose, the side of the nose, the side plane of the nose as it comes out. And another thing that I'd like to ask you guys to pay attention to as we're working on portrait studies is if you let the head shape, if you let your shapes be distinctive, the drawing will end up having what's called appeal. So let's say, for instance, this shape. Working on establishing this shape, sticking closer to the closest underlying geometric set of shapes that can compose it will do a lot to tidy your drawing up, okay? Okay. That said, let's do a quick study from this piece by John Singer Sargent. Okay, so we're focusing on the head, and the first thing that I want to do is give myself a tiny little bit more space. The first thing that I want to do is go after the basic head shape, just like what I was telling you. And so the first order of business is establishing a really clean and beautiful shape that I'm going to build off of, okay? And it has symmetry. I feel like that's a pretty good starting point. And you're always, like, when you look at this shape, notice this, the wideness that's happening on the right side, while the left side feels like it's kind of narrowing. And so anything that you can do to reinforce the basic quality of this exact shape at this point. And this shape, I'm still going to allow it to be very malleable. So the height of the eyes generally comes up at about a halfway point, and so I'm just going to indicate that. The height of the nose is generally halfway between the eyes and the chin, and the height of the mouth is generally about halfway. This doesn't have to work, however, it may very well work. So notice how strong the shape of the hair and its relationship with the face is. And so that's a really easy point to start to work from. great shape at the opening of the collar. It's almost a perfect diamond. It's really nice. Perfect kind of triangle, really. And allow yourself to draw in, when you see something like that, allow yourself to really capture it as the basic shape that it is. It's a triangle. Okay. I'm gonna start looking for the shape of the nose. And the cleaner I can be, the better. That's that shape of the underplane. If this is the level of the eyes, imagine from the bottom of the nose, if I measure from right there to right there, and I'm looking for, okay, and it feels like the nose comes straight up. I'm going to pay really close attention. Look at how I'm not centered over the nose right now. I can move the nose over just a tiny bit, and that'll help. And I can move this part over just a tiny bit. And so both of those adjustments will help. And this goes into that part of the eye that is the butterfly. So here's the bottom of it. You come down and up, and the same on the other side. It comes down and slightly up, cutting downward. So I'm cutting downward right there right now. Cutting downward. Look at how this comes into where the eyeball will fall, about in the center of where the eyeball will fall. That's about where that is. I'm starting to find out that I may need to widen the head in general. The head may need to come out to, say, here. Let's see, though. And past the eyebrow, the top of the butterfly goes to there, okay? And try to be really light with this part, this top part. And you just have to trust me that it'll work out by drawing this, and you have to draw it really lightly. It goes like that, okay? From this mark, the top of the nose, right there. These are definitely going to end up coming down some, but that's the top of the nose. And if you go over, you can see the top of the eyelid, and that comes this way. And there will be an absolute correlation on the other side. top of the eyelid, down to there. Tear duct, tear duct. This side of the eye is up from the tear duct. Very large pupils. It's a little lip. And now this shows me that this wants to pull up slightly. And this represents that shadow underneath the eye. Notice the space from here to the top of the nose. Here's the line of the eyebrow. You'll notice that right here is a particularly bright spot. So you can see that the shadow goes here and underneath the eyebrow. And then it gradually lessens out this way. This line in here, the darkness that's in there, we would call that occlusion. Where just no light gets to that one little crack in there. Notice how much darker it is than everything that's around it. Okay, now to develop the bottom of the nose. So as you go this way, remember the shape that I was telling you about, like an apron, that sort of forms where the nose hits? Okay, so we'll measure from there. We'll take it, we'll put it in. It almost, you can almost see like what would be a kind of a hockey player's band-aid sitting right in there. And that's kind of what we're looking for right this second. The top edge interacts with the eye. The bottom edge sits directly above the nostril. Here's the nostril. And the same will be true on the other side. This line that's a little philtrum. And on the lips, sometimes you can think of those three spheres. 1, 2, 3. And underneath is a little shadow. It looks like that's where the bottom of the chin wants to end up. When we're working on our contour, let's try and keep the shape really clean. Here's the cast shadow of the nose. Drops down, and look at the way that it goes over, and then when it gets to the philtrum, you can see it continuing to give shape. The bottom lip has a cast shadow on it. Notice the fact of, can you see how the shadow is darker right there? And that is called the core shadow. Can you see the reflection up in here? Continuing to search for that key shape, the overall shape, but at the same time not overly swerve away from what a lot of my earlier ideas were about that shape. So right here, this here marks the upper boundary of the cheekbones, and the cheekbones will sit in here. They're going to do something like this. Like if you think of them as a kind of diamond-shaped, rounded along the form, almost like this. So you can see a kind of shape like this. That's the middle, and it goes about like this. And there's another one over here, and it goes about like this, and it forms this lower border right there, and then cuts further back, and you find it again here, so you see it right there, so it comes back that way. Okay, and that's the shape that we're starting to, that's what we're starting to look for next. So at the level of the eye and over, you start to see the top of it. At the level of the eye and over, you start to see the top, the back top of it. And here, the shadow that falls this way and then comes around the lower cheek here and unifies with these, okay, and tucks itself up into this part of the eye, and all of this stuff. And all of the neck is in shadow. Cast shadow. Notice the cast shadow going across the clothing. Top of the collar is at about the level of the bottom of the mouth. Opens up a correction. Ears. For right now, I'm just going to draw a rough shape for the ears, and the ears go between the brow, and these ones are in shadow. And the ear, basically, you can see really nicely that in this one, you can see there's a top plane, there's an inside cutaway, and then this, the lobe turns up again. And the hair comes to here. And goes up and down and over and up and over. And the scale at the top of the head will really help determine this model's age. Notice in the hair that this part of the hair right here has been shaded like a cylinder. So below there, I'm not drawing hairs, I'm drawing shading. And then a lightness, and then up through here, a darkness. And this whole side is just in shadow. And this right here is in shadow. This is really bright flower. But this whole side is a really strong shape with soft edges. Okay, I feel like that's good for what I want to do for right now. Back to the nose for a minute. From here up, we can see the nostrils passing there, over here, softer. Okay, let's say that's our first portrait.